I'm Steve Howard, White's Electronics. The MX5 offers high-end features, performance in a rugged, lightweight, and easy-to-use package. The MX5 comes standard with a 9-inch Spider search coil. It interchanges with all of the Eclipse family of search coils. So the MX5 can interchange coils with White's M6, MXT, DFX, VX3, and V3i series of models. The MX5 has a 1/4-inch headphone jack on the side of the control box. It'll accept any 1/4-inch stereo headphone. It's recommended that you use the type of headphone with the 90-degree jack. That's standard equipment for White's products. Let's review all the features and searching techniques of the MX5. Starting first with getting up and running and then detailing each of the features one at a time. Let's get started. Turn on the power. The MX5 has automatic ground tracking to eliminate the effects of the ground mineralization. To speed up the initial tracking process, find a spot free of targets using the pinpoint mode. Switch back to disk mode and bob the search coil up and down a few times. Sensitivity defaults to a reasonable level. If the audio chatters or constantly overloads, reduce the sensitivity level. Press select to highlight sensitivity, arrow up and down to change. Sweep the search coil from side to side. The search coil must always be in motion for metals to be detected. Keep the coil level and close to the ground. Overlap each sweep by 50% to avoid missing targets. Once a repeatable and solid-sounding beep upon several sweeps is detected, indicating a metal of interest, and then the display information is consulted, use the pinpoint button to isolate its exact location. Cross the target from 2 directions at 90-degree angles and listen for the strongest response. In addition to turning the MX5 on and off, the power button can also suspend operation, standby mode. Quick press power to suspend the MX5 during target retrieval, for example. The MX5 will chirp every 30 seconds to remind you you are in the standby mode. After about 5 minutes, standby mode will automatically revert to full off. Standby continues to show a search display with 2 dash marks replacing the VDI number. Make certain you tap the power to return to search mode. Press and hold the power button for 2 seconds to turn the instrument off. The power button is also used to restore factory settings. Simultaneously press the beach and power buttons to reset the current mode. Simultaneously press the select and power button to reset all modes. The MX5 has 3 search modes. Coin, which is a general purpose coin and jewelry and has discrimination. Beach, which enables an extended ground balance range for tracking salt water. Pinpoint all metal, used to isolate the target location or detect all metal types. The beach button rotates through mode selections simultaneously. Each mode can be modified with custom settings such as disk or sensitivity, and the modified settings will automatically retain even after power off and battery removal. In addition, there is an all metal mode which is selected by pressing and holding the pinpoint button until you hear a short beep. The mode will indicate all metal. The all metal mode turns off the discriminator and accepts all metal target types. Select button rotates through 4 user adjustments. Sensitivity. The sensitivity control increases or decreases the responsiveness of the MX5. When sensitivity is selected, a rectangle appears around the sensitivity level bars. The up and down buttons adjust the level from minimum 1 bar to maximum 10 bars. Normally, this determines how deep the detector will see a target. In general, run the sensitivity as high as possible while maintaining smooth operation. If the audio is unstable or chatters or the ground is causing overload, reduce sensitivity. Volume. Volume adjusts the loudness of the target response, or beep. Threshold. This is the loudness of the threshold audio, which is the background hum. A modest setting of 20 is typical when using headphones, helps with faint target responses, which may be too deep to trigger a tone ID, but are audible as a threshold variation. A setting of 0 results in silent search, no threshold, in which a target response may not be heard unless it is strong enough to trigger a tone ID. Tone ID. The MX5 has selectable tone ID responses. Selecting tone ID provides a difference in the tone for specific classes of targets based on their VDI number. 1 tone equals no tone identification. 2 tone equals 2 tones based on the VDI number. 8 tone equals 8 different pitch beeps based on the VDI range of the target. Higher the tone, the higher it is on the VDI scale. Discriminated, rejected targets may not produce a beep or may produce a modified shorter beep. The discrimination control allows you to enable or disable the audio response for selected ranges of targets. The MX5 has 20-segment discrimination control. The left and right arrows move the cursor across the segments, and pressing the disk button will toggle the response from the selected segment from accept to reject. Accept, or detected, have a square under the VDI number range. Rejected targets do not have a square under the VDI number range. The backlight button toggles the display backlight for low light hunting conditions. A screen icon indicates when backlight is on. Keep in mind that the backlight uses additional battery power and should be turned off when not needed. Briefly pressing and releasing the pinpoint button places the MX5 in a pinpoint mode. You will see flash on the screen and hear a brief double tone. The search mode will switch to all metal, and the 2-digit number now represents depth instead of the VDI number. Briefly press and release the pinpoint button again to return the MX5 to its previous search mode. In both the all-metal and pinpoint modes, a threshold audio is applied, and a target will cause the loudness to increase. The MX5 supports VCO audio, whereby the pitch of the beep increases as the loop nears the strongest part of the signal. VCO audio is enabled by simultaneously pressing the pinpoint and arrow up to turn on, press pinpoint and arrow down to turn off. The display doesn't indicate VCO on-off. On-off is obvious upon use. The MX5 display provides a wealth of information, not only about the target, but about the settings of the detector or the options or features. On the right is the segmented bar, which shows the sensitivity level. On the left, another segmented bar shows the estimated target depth in increments of 2 inches or 5 centimeters. At the bottom, a segmented bar shows the battery strength. A large 2-digit number displays the VDI response of the targets based on known targets' phase and amplitudes in both disk and all-metal modes, and the depth of the target in pinpoint mode. The depth readout can be switched to centimeters by pressing pinpoint and select at the same time. Metric depths are in whole centimeters. Across the top of the display are the segments for the 20 discrimination zones. When a target is detected, a pointer cursor points to the zone that corresponds to the type of target. Each zone can be disabled, rejected, by using the disk keypad button to move the cursor and deselect each zone. To change a continuous block, press and hold the disk button and press left or right arrow. Rejecting a zone only affects the audio. The display will still show target information even if you can't hear an audible response. The MX5 display includes a backlight for extended hunting. Press the backlight button to toggle the backlight on or off. In daylight, it can be difficult to tell whether the backlight is on or off, so a backlight icon is also displayed. The backlight will reduce battery life by 20%, so it's best to turn it off when not needed. The coin and beach modes of the MX5 are discrimination-based modes, whereby the search coil must be in continuous motion to detect targets.
If the coil is hovered over a target, the response will cease. Coin mode. This is the primary search mode for the MX5 for most general hunting. By default, AutoTrac is enabled and restricted to normal soil. Most iron is discriminated and the threshold is on. Beach. Wet salt sand and sometimes highly fertilized ground is mildly conductive and difficult for most metal detectors. The beach mode expands the ground tracking range of the MX5 to handle wet salt sand.
You may still need to slow down the sweep speed to avoid false signals. It is not recommended to use the beach mode in normal soils, as it can track targets out upon multiple passes.
Also, generally not needed for dry beach sand. This mode otherwise behaves like the disc mode. All metal. The all metal mode turns off the discriminator and accepts all metal types. The tone ID is disabled, but VDI numbers are still reporting. All metal mode requires that the search coil be in motion in order to respond to a target. If the coil is held steady over the target, it will stop responding after a few seconds. Pinpoint.
Technically, pinpoint is not a search mode, but it can be. The pinpoint mode does not have automatic ground tracking and does not have the self-adjusting threshold. So the threshold will drift with time. Occasionally, you'll have to press the pinpoint button to reestablish the threshold.
MX5 has the ability to accept or reject targets based on their VDI response. Each of the 20 VDI zones at the top of the screen includes a marker which can be turned on or off to enable or disable that zone. These 20 markers collectively make up the discrimination mask or disc mask, which determines how the MX5 responds to targets. Discrimination is a compromise or gamble designed to reduce the amount of undesired targets, thus leaving more time for good targets. For example, when rejecting aluminum pull tabs, some types and sizes of jewelry will also be rejected. If you hunt in extreme trash and all you care about are silver coins and maybe copper, you can use an extreme high amount of discrimination and forego low conductors altogether. Keep in mind that while you might get some copper, such as wheats, you might lose others, such as Indian heads, which often fall lower than 70. Also, all nickels will be rejected.
For the best results, use the lowest level of discrimination you can tolerate for any given area.
Sensitivity. There is a strong desire to always run a metal detector at maximum sensitivity. However, this not only increases the response to target signals, but also that of ground signals and electromagnetic interference, EMI.
A common mistake is to assume that the higher sensitivity levels will provide the greatest detection depth. Although this might be true in an air test, in the ground it will depend on the type and amount of ground mineralization.
The maximum level is usually only useful in the very quietest of locations, and for most hunting you will probably need to use a lower setting. In general, set the sensitivity as high as possible to get smooth, chatter-free threshold, but no higher. Bottle caps. Steel bottle caps are different than most iron targets as they have both a magnetic iron and a conductive non-iron response. As such, the composite response can look either ferrous or non-ferrous, and the response further depends on the type of loop being used. Old bottle caps often look like a US quarter. However, they tend to give an inconsistent audio response as sweep speed is varied. The audio often rolls between ferrous and non-ferrous. This is easier to distinguish in multi-tone modes, and with some practice you will learn how to recognize the audio response of most bottle caps. Sweep methods. Proper sweep technique is important with any metal detector. Round coils tend to have a conical pattern of sensitivity. As such, coverage at maximum depth is less than the size of the coil. So it is recommended that successive sweeps are overlapped by at least 50%. Besides overlapping each sweep, it is important to keep the coil close and parallel to the ground. Pendulum swinging the coil results in the loss of depth, and if the ground balance isn't perfect, false responses can result. Finally, sweep speed affects the target response and depth. Some detectors designed for an exceptionally slow sweep speed, some need a fast sweep speed. The MX5 works best at a moderate rate of about 3 feet per second. Somewhat slower or somewhat faster is fine, but whipping the coil at a fast rate is a good way to miss deeper targets. The bottom line is swing level, moderate speed, and overlap. Sizing, pinpointing, and digging. When a target is detected, move the coil well away from the target area and quickly press the pinpoint button to switch to the pinpoint mode. A normal sweep over the target in pinpoint mode will give an idea of target size. If the response is narrow, then it is likely a small coin-sized target. If the response is broad, then it could be a beer can. Shallow targets can give a broad response, and large, deep targets can give a narrow response, so use judgment with this. Once you determine that you want to dig a target, use the pinpoint mode to zero in on the location. A crisscross pattern works best, especially using VCO audio to listen for the peak audio tone. Watch the ground through the open coil to better determine the exact spot. Be mindful of proper digging techniques when extracting the target. Always fill in all your holes. Use the smallest appropriate digging tool, especially in public areas you have gained permission to or determined legal to search. Learn how to cut a flap that avoids turf damage, or better yet, how to pop coins. In the beginning, practice digging in your own yard to the point you can dig and refill the hole without leaving an obvious mess. There are lots of videos on YouTube that demonstrate good extraction protocol.
Thank you for your interest in White's MX5. For more information or for a catalog, see us on the web at www.whiteselectronics.com or give us a call toll-free at 1-800-547-6911.